Broncos training camp is here, and on today's DNVR Broncos show, we're breaking down the big headlines. Bo Nix had a little interesting situation with him. Greg Dulcich, great news. Javonte Williams, great news. Let's start it right now. The Broncos are officially back, baby. Let's go. They're back on the field. They were back in the building yesterday, and today they are back on the field. The first training camp practice in the books. About 20 left to go, and man, today was great to see the fellas back. Short practice, but plenty of takeaways that we're going to get into inside the Toyota Lounge, coming to you live from the DNVR Bar. Of course, Toyota Lounge is brought to you by your local Front Range Toyota stores, so make sure to check them out if you need a new Toyota. This is Zach Stevens. This is Henry Chisholm. This is Kale behind the mic, or the screen, rocking and rolling with you today to break down what we saw in about an hour and 15-minute practice today.
Yeah, it was a short one, which makes sense, obviously, being the first practice. At the same time, it left me wanting more. We got the 1 7-on-7 period. We got the 1 period of team drills. Basically, starters get 4 reps, backups get 4 reps, third stringers get 4 reps, and that's how both of those went.
You got to make them count.
Gotta make them count. We saw about 24 plays of football.
And so it was the Bo show out there. Or was it, Henry? Let's talk about this here. And of course, because all eyes are on this quarterback competition, specifically Bo Nix, we've set it up where we're going to follow this competition through a very sophisticated process. And we've set this up so every single day, we're going to know who the winner is, who got second place, and who got third place, because the Olympics starts this week on Friday, actually. First day fans are allowed there. So we're going to...
Soccer starts today.
How about that? So we're going to be handing some medals out every single day. And the way we're going to do that is Henry and I each are going to come up with a score for each quarterback from 0 to 10.
Yes.
10 being you could not have done better. I have to imagine a 10, Henry, is like 5... You went 5 for 5 with 5 touchdowns.
Wow.
Right? Like
only 5 passes, though?
If he's only allowed 5 passes.
I guess.
I can't hold the number of passes
fair
that Sean
enough.
calls.
Fair enough.
10 for 10 with 10 touchdowns.
There we go.
And a 0 would be 0 for 10 with 10 interceptions.
Wow. So we're not getting 10s or 0s this camp.
I don't think so.
Oh, no.
Well, man, if I told you we're getting 1, but it was a gamble on which one it was, would you take it or leave it? Like, would you take that or would you leave that?
I would say one of us gives somebody a 10 at some point. But it will not be 10 for 10 with 10 touchdowns. I would say, no,
Then
won't be that.
I don't think we're giving any 10s out.
Okay.
So a 5 is average. So this is not grade school where if you get a 70%, you're like wondering if you're going to pass the class right now. 5 is average, and we're not going to know each other's scores going in to this show. We're going to find out live on this show, and we're going to start our shows every day like that, giving you an update just how Bo Nix did, just how Jarrett Stidham did, just how Zach Wilson did, and how they matched up to one another. And then we'll take a step back and look at the big picture, see where things are. And without further ado, Henry, let's give our stats or our numbers on who won the day today.
I had Stidham first, and I had Stidham with a 5.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah. There. Oh, we agreed.
5 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
And
that's awesome.
Just so everyone knows who's watching and listening, we can go to decimal points as well.
I wasn't doing that day one.
Especially because we can. So the fact that I did not know you had a 5 out of 10.
Pretty crazy.
So we both thought Jarrett Stidham was 100% average today.
Yeah. We'll dig into the details later, but I think maybe only one real miss of a throw off the top of my head, and not really any throws that stand out as like, oh, good job, man. A lot of checkdowns.
He was as average gets. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, if you have an average quarterback, you don't want to strive for it. But hey, if the Broncos could have had an average quarterback for 8 of these last 8 years, they would have been in much better shape. They would have made the playoffs a couple of times. Probably not won any Super Bowls. But so average. That's where Jarrett Stidham was today. Actually, when I think of that, that's probably his worst day in this 2024 year, because he was actually really good in OTAs in the offseason. Like Henry said, we'll break that down in just a second. But let's dive into who you had. Let's get the scores out for Bo Nix here. Oh, my goodness. Henry had a 3 out of 10 for Bo, and I went a 4.5 out of 10.
Okay, so you had him close. To me, I thought...
Let's dish out Zach Wilson.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and go through these guys. And Zach Wilson, I had a 2.5 out of 10, and you had him as a 4 out of 10. So, Henry, your silver medal today is gold. We both had the same gold medal going to Stidham, and you had your silver medal going to Zach Wilson, and I had it going for Bo Nix. And I really disagree with you there. There we go. There's the podium standings today. When you average all the scores out, Bo Nix comes in second place there. Incredible graphics. Shout out to the graphics team for that one.
Oh, boy.
And because Kale's our producer. Shout out to Kale for that. So the training camp medal count, and we're going to be following this all throughout training camp and, of course, the Olympics. We've got Jarrett Stidham leading us off today at 1, Bo Nix number 2, and Zach Wilson number 3. And I think that was very fitting for how Sean Payton drew this up, Henry. There was a slight change to the quarterback competition today as opposed to how it looked in the offseason. We saw Jarrett Stidham get the first day with the 1s, Zach Wilson get the second day with the 1s, and Bo Nix get the third day with the 1s. Now Bo Nix today, he was with the number 2s instead of the number 3s today. So we'll see tomorrow if that really is a switch. But I kind of thought that was interesting because it was very clear that Zach Wilson was number 3 in the offseason. And I think this might be indicating Sean Payton saw the same thing and kind of reordered that heading into camp. So that was my very first takeaway from the quarterbacks was Bo Nix might be moving up a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think there's probably something there. I wouldn't read too much into that. Again, like it's kind of like Sean said, you're fighting kind of for positioning entering camp during the off season. It's a lot like a NASCAR race where everybody like you do your little lap around the track and they get your time, and that's how they say who starts toward the front and who starts from the back. So I mean that's what we saw today. I think that
so notable though.
Notable in that we were correct in what we saw in the spring, but I had no doubts that we were correct.
And that, no, I wasn't. I had no doubts that we were correct here. There's a big gap between Zach and Bo in the offseason. But I think it's notable that Sean recognized that and said, okay, I'm gonna change this up a little bit. Yeah.
At the same time, I think that 95% of what happens in the spring is now erased, and it's all about training camp. And so, like, 100%. It is, he saw what we saw, which... if he hadn't seen what we had seen, then that's where there could have been some trouble.
But speaking of what people did see or didn't see, let's dive into Bo Nix's day. And Henry, why did you think he was bad?
So there just wasn't anything that was good is the thing. I think that, when he was at his best, he was hitting the checkdowns that Stidham was hitting. There was one probably like good throw, a throw gained maybe 10, 12 yards, and that was to Greg Dulcich on the sideline. It was like this little quick like short corner, maybe like an out route.
About 15 yards what I had.
Yeah, I had it more like 12, but basically. And that was like a good throw. At the same time, he was wide open. And so he took advantage of that, which was awesome. Outside of that, though, he hit a couple checkdowns. He got one to like Nate Adkins on a quick little curl. He also missed some throws. And
he did.
There was the miss on there was an out route to Marvin Mims where he just let him too far out there. There was a comeback to Josh Reynolds where he left it a little bit short, where Reynolds had kind of flattened it off. And that's, again, like it's probably more chemistry than anything else. But there were just a couple too many incompletions. And I'm not going to count up the numbers, but, when you complete half your passes, let's say, and you don't really have any big gainers, like that's just not a great day.
Yeah, no, very fair. That's why I also had him below average on the day.
Yep.
I think we're both right on that being the case. But to me, Bo did his accuracy was probably the worst we've seen.
Yep.
All of camp. Not all of camp, but all of the offseason since the Broncos drafted him. I'm not worried about that after one practice. I don't think you're worried either.
No.
But like you said, there were 2 passes where he just completely missed guys because of inaccuracy and then that miscommunication with Josh Reynolds as well. But why I had him as number 2 on the day was he had 2 passes, maybe even 3 passes. Actually, you can make the case for 3 passes that should have been caught. Now, he didn't necessarily help the receiver out a ton, but if the receiver makes a good play, maybe even a great play, then he would have had maybe even the best day. But the big one, there was a pass, a dart. It was Adam Troutman running up the seam from the tight end spot and perfect coverage by Jonas Griffith. Perfect coverage. So that tells you right there, Bo probably shouldn't have thrown the ball, but I do understand why you have a tight end on a linebacker going down the seam and the linebacker's back is to the quarterback, so that helps the quarterback. That's an advantage there. You know the ball's not going to be picked off. And so probably shouldn't have thrown it just because it was very tight coverage, but it went right through Adam Troutman's hands. And now it would have been a really good catch.
On it.
And it went right through both of his hands. It was just like this. And again, Jonas was like in perfect coverage, so I don't want to put all the blame on Troutman for not catching it. But that one would have been a 20, 25-yard gain as well. And then in the team periods, Tim Patrick, you never see Tim Patrick drop a catch or drop a pass. And now this one, it was in traffic in the middle of the field, about 10, 15 yards downfield, and it was a dart by Bo Nix. I mean, he put some flavor on this, and it was behind Tim. So again, there's definitely fault on Bo there. It was not a good pass, but it did hit both of Tim's hands. That's one that could have been caught. Maybe we would have taken a great play from Tim as well.
And that one in particular, it's a slant route too. And so Tim's up there and he's charging full speed this way, and you throw a ball, like whip it to like the backside of his
10
knees.
10 or 15 yard in.
Yeah, it was like a deeper slant. But yeah, so he's got full momentum going that way. And so, like, you just can't expect a guy to make it. And then, again, Bo's defense, it was a super tight window. Like, he had to hit a gap, and I don't think he could have put that ball in front of him or a defender's going to get a hand on it. That was kind of the only place he could put it. But that ball's just not going to get caught very often.
And so, to me, Bo didn't have a great day, obviously. A little slightly below average in my mind. But it was kind of because Stidham also didn't have a great day, and Stidham's been used to having great days, it kind of just stands, this quarterback competition stands exactly where it was this offseason in my mind. Jarrett Stidham won the day. Bo Nix was kind of just behind him in my eyes. And then to me, there was another big drop-off from Zach Wilson. I'm really curious why you thought he had a better day than Bo.
Yeah, I mean, you just go back to some of these throws, and I think there's some one-for-ones in there. You know, you talked about the one to Troutman up the seam. I think so. He had that opportunity to kind of, I wouldn't call it a big one. I didn't think he was as far downfield as you did. But you had Zach Wilson throw a fade ball to David Sills up the sideline that didn't get completed. I think Sills got 1 foot in. I'm not sure if he would argue he got 2 in, but I didn't think it was all that close. No. It was like this nice kind of pretty back shoulder, like kind of rotate, tap your toes type ball. And who actually, I didn't get the coverage on that. But I thought that was a really good throw, and I thought that between.
But you're saying it was too far out of bounds.
Oh, I think like Courtland catches it though.
See, to me that it was a catch that I did not put that on the receiver. It was a ball thrown out of bounds. And he actually did that twice. Zach Wilson did that twice today, because he also had. Actually, no, that was the one where he led the receiver too far out of bounds. In fact, I don't even think he got 1 foot in. That's what I'm saying. That's why it was.
I was right there. I'm confident he did. We were standing together. No, I thought he got 1 in. I didn't mind that ball. I just like that one better than the Bo ball up the seam.
Okay. Then he also had my disagreement with that one, with what you just said, is the Bo pass hit the receiver and it went through his hands, and the other one was clearly out. I don't even think Courtland catches it. I don't even think Courtland gets 1 foot in. No,
really?
No.
Okay, then we're just on the same page there. It makes sense. The other one, I thought the best throw of the day was this shallow post from David Sills in 7-on-7s. It was the only... I mean, there was that one, and it was Bo's to a wide open Greg Dulcich on the sideline that were the only throws that were completed for decent gains. And that
Zach?
one... Yeah, Zach Wilson. Yeah,
on 7-on-7.
7-on-7. Hit David Sills. It was his last throw. It was over the middle. It was just like a nice shallow post. He cut it off because there was traffic. And a good ball there. Again, like you get to that stuff. And I think the other piece where we probably disagree on Zach is just that the 2 times he tried to throw the ball in team drills, he just got mauled.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even get a throw off in that. And so that's where like I don't really put those on him. I think that the throws he did get off, there was I thought only the one incompletion, and that one again, I thought if you get the right receiver there, that might actually be a catch.
And here's where there was one play that you haven't talked about. That is why it wasn't just like a bad day. It was pretty real bad day from Zach Wilson because of one play. And I want to tell you about that after I give a shout out to our friends over at Toyota. Of course, we're in the Toyota Lounge. And if you want the best car, fall's coming up, you want to go see those leaves in the mountains, Toyota's got so many cars, including the Highlander. You can go for the RAV4. You can also go for my favorite, the 4Runner. And then the new Land Cruiser came back this spring. Those are great cars for the fall and the winter. And of course, so many of their cars are great for all year around. If you want the truck that has the hybrid capability, it's powerful, the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck brings that to you, including 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from. Toyota has so many different options, whether you're looking for a sports car like Hank likes or you're looking for a big truck that has the hybrid capabilities. Toyota is your dealer. So visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL and the official vehicle of DNVR.
Yes, and we've been telling you about David Schlicht, who went to UC Health, wanted to go to the Olympics, wound up in a horrible ski accident and lost his leg. But they were able to get him fit with a prosthesis, all this sort of stuff. And I was just looking through the website, and there's a whole bunch of other stories of UC Health patients, like, what's this guy's name? Wim Haveralls. Wim's a pretty crazy name.
Yeah.
W-I-M. But he actually broke his hip at Burning Man when he was on a one-wheeled skateboard, which is a crazy sentence.
That is wild.
But because of the way things turned out, they had to do like a second surgery basically to lengthen his leg because he had like lost some inches in the surgery.
My goodness.
But there's a whole bunch of stories of the ways that UC Health has helped people kind of get back to their normal lives after going through some pretty horrible freak accidents. If you want to check those out, you can go over to UC Health's website at uchealth.org/tomorrow because they have a whole bunch of these stories. They're actually kind of uplifting, which is the point of this campaign they're making. And you can learn what it means to live like there is a tomorrow.
So Zach Wilson had what a couple of people out there at Broncos training camp called, including myself, a Paxton Lynch moment. And this was his second Paxton Lynch moment since he's been on the Broncos on 7-on-7, a drill where you have to throw the ball. There's no defensive line. There's no linebackers, pass rushers, I should say. He ran. He scrambled. That is a Paxton Lynch play. Paxton did that a couple of times in training camp, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? You cannot do that. And it just goes to show decision making. And to me, and the very first practice of camp, you cannot do that. And so that just takes like a pretty underwhelming bad day to just like, especially when we're only talking about 8 plays, like you said, and that's one of them. Just you can't do it. So that's why I really knocked down Zach today.
Yeah, I thought that might be the difference because I didn't care as much about that. I think to me, scrambling versus throwing the ball away, I don't like. It's definitely obviously not a good play, but it's not enough to totally tank his grade. I don't think
this isn't like real NFL 11-on-11 where you scramble as opposed to throw the ball away and they're both. And you
it's like either way, I don't really care what you choose.
This is like but this is like You are not supposed to do this. Coaches say do not scramble in 7-on-7.
Maybe.
No, they do.
But would you rather he just threw the ball away then?
Yes, 100%.
See, that's the thing, though, is like, if that's the difference, I don't really care.
This goes to, like, when coaches tell you not to do this, and then you do it, okay, well, what's going to happen in a game situation? Coaches tell you not to run backwards for 15 yards and then take a sack. Well, Zach Wilson's done that many times, and so I really don't like to see that. But overall, an underwhelming day from the quarterbacks, I would say. I mean, the best we had was an average score, but this is how it should be. And what I mean by that is defenses should start training camp faster. We saw it even when Peyton Manning was the quarterback here. And 2 weeks into camp, okay, Peyton's winning those practices. But early on, there's some battles there between the offense and the defense. And obviously, with young quarterbacks on the Broncos offensive side, I am not concerned about this at all with the quarterbacks. We just hope to see some momentum. But I think you and I were pretty close on our scores overall.
Yep. And I think the big thing is just that to this day really doesn't matter to the competition, I don't think. I mean, it's the first day back. Obviously, if somebody had like an insanely good day, insanely bad day, then that would kind of weigh in your mind. But when these guys are throwing 6 passes each maybe, and you're playing most of the day out of heavy personnel, so you're not really trying to push the ball downfield anyway. On the first day back, you're kind of getting acclimated anyway. Like, there's just... Today, to me, like, you can nitpick and say, like, he's here. Big picture, though, it kind of just gets thrown out just because if they were running these spread offenses and these team drills and trying to get the ball downfield, it's just different than like you're leaking tight ends out the back and they're hitting the tight ends. So like, what do you really want from them? You know,
I disagree because I think there were some very notable things out of today's practice. And let's get into our Shady Rays. The future is bright, where if you are going to be outside, if you're going to be going to training camp, you are going to want some Shady Rays. And how about 35% off? How does that sound over at shadyrays.com? If you use the code DNVR over at shadyrays.com, you're going to get 35% off their polarized sunglasses. And let's tell you why the future is bright. Because, Henry, I thought there were 2 guys that gave so much hope for the future today.
Oh, wow. I think the big one's Greg Dulcich. Like, there's Javonte, too. But yeah, Greg Dulcich caught more balls than anybody else. Like I said, he was kind of wide open on that sideline. I didn't see what he did to get there, but I'd imagine it was like zone coverage. He found his way into some open space, which is good on him.
I got to say, to me, that was the play of the day from an offensive standpoint. And the reason I say play of the day is because Dulcich read the zone right, got there, and then Bo put the ball where it needed to be. He dropped. It wasn't like there was a defender so close, but he still put it over the underneath zone defender, got it to Greg. So, and then Greg had to like do the tippy toes to get his feet in bounds on the sideline. So I definitely thought that was a play of the day.
Yep. But the big thing with Greg is just that he's out there. You know, like he should be catching a bunch of balls today. Again, like it's a day where you're running 2-3 tight ends. Like you're getting fullbacks in there. Like if you're completing passes, it will be to tight ends. And so it was Greg. He was out there. He was doing his stuff. No big plays, but was reliable underneath. And it's just good to see him back. And you mentioned Javonte too. Javonte, I think it was the first play you said like, oh, he looks fast.
Yeah.
And Sean said the same thing afterward, that he's cut some weight, which is good news because he didn't look like he had the same burst last year. So yeah, I mean, 2 guys who you just hope that you're going to get more from this year.
And I mean, if we see those guys in the season like we saw them today, the future is going to be bright for the Broncos on the offensive side of the ball. So use that code DNVR over at shadyrays.com. Let's dive into both of these guys a little more, Henry. And you said it right there. Like when we saw Greg Dulcich, number 80, hiking his shorts up with that long hair coming out of his helmet, it's like, okay, it's happening. Because Sean told us yesterday, Greg Dulcich is going to practice this week.
Yep.
But he said this week, he left a little wiggle room, and it's like, oh, no, come on. Because he's left wiggle room open in the past, and it's gone the other way. Like this offseason when he said Dulcich was going to be back during the offseason, then he was not. That was concerning. So you just want to see Greg out there. And when he was out there, it was like, oh, my gosh, this is already a win for Greg. We don't even have to watch practice.
Yep.
Greg has already won the day. But, Henry, I got to say, he looked better than I could have ever imagined.
Wow.
Just like on air, but then also in practice as well. He looked fast. He looked explosive. He was making cuts where, I mean, he's going full speed on the cuts. And remember, all of his injuries have been lower body. So whether it's the foot, the ankle, the hamstring, all of that is greatly impacted by, one, explosion and burst, and then also making these cuts. So in individual period, I was like, man, let's go. And also, he's kind of taking the first reps, and I'm like, wow, Sean really is a big fan of him. And then when it came to the practice, you mentioned the one on air that he had, or during 7-on-7, he was open. Maybe he did a good job of getting open. But the one that I loved to see, it was from Stidham. It was a play-action pass in team period, and Stidham comes, he rolls to the right, and Greg is coming from left to right. Greg catches the ball pretty open, and then he just explodes upfield, which put a lot of pressure because he was having to turn and then explode, and he looked straight up like a receiver to me, not a tight end. And you know what? That's what the Broncos need. They don't need more Chris Manhertz. They don't need more Adam Troutmans who can do it all. And I'm not saying that Greg Dulcich can't block, but right now they need. Yeah, okay, you're saying he can't block, which is fine. But I don't need that. I want the guy that looks like a receiver playing the tight end position, and that is what we saw from Greg Dulcich today. And we've seen the flashes in the past in games of what he can do. First catch was 40 yards and a touchdown against the Chargers a couple of years ago. And so we've seen that. And I got to say, he looked even more explosive than he was a couple of years ago when healthy. So every day you're crossing your fingers. I'm hoping that he's out there tomorrow. You can't count on that, but I'm hoping he's out there tomorrow because I actually think he could be a massive part to this offense this year in week 1 if he's able to stay healthy.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Again, you just have to hope he stays healthy because that's kind of the first hurdle. But as soon as if you could just wipe away all the injury concerns, he's definitely somebody who could change the offense.
Yeah.
That play in particular against play action. So you're running all this stuff out of these heavy sets. And so you play action left, leak him out to the right. It's a staple. Again, you give him the ball in the flat. He's open. He's off and running. He picks up a first down for sure. It goes back to the blocking, though. At the end of the day, especially on a play like that, where you're saying, we're faking the run left. With Greg Dulcich out there are 2 things that could happen. There's one, the defense says, that's Greg Dulcich. He's not blocking. This is a fake. So, just to cover him. The other thing that happens is the defense says, oh, that's Greg Dulcich. I'm about to get by him and just go get tackled for loss. And you just have to hope that they get overexcited by seeing him out there. But again, the injuries are always the big story with Greg. Once you get past those, then you get back to these little just football things where for him, he has all the receiving talent he needs. Does he just have enough blocking ability that you can fake runs or line up with multiple tight ends and not have teams know that you're going to pass the ball? Because that's where you can get those easy catches. If you are telling the defense you're passing whenever he's on the field, all of a sudden the easy passes dry up and you're asking him to make tougher plays. And that's where instead of being a guy who could potentially go get you 50, 60 yards a game, you're talking about a guy who he'll get you his 30, 40 a game. And that's the big picture where you need him to go.
Big picture down the road, sure. Yep. But I think if any coach in the NFL, and we've seen this for 15 years now, can utilize players to their strengths and know how to kind of not tip off defenses, or even if defenses are tipped off because a guy's on the field, he still knows how to utilize them. It is Sean Payton. So that's a big reason why I'm confident that Greg doesn't have to be a blocker this year. Would you love him to be an all-around tight end, be that Jeremy Shockey that Sean had in New York? Yeah, of course, you would love that. But I don't think he has to be a blocker this year. I don't think he has to have any blocks this year for him to still be a massive weapon for the Broncos. And some people in the Toyota chat are saying, nope, I'm not getting caught up in this Greg Dulcich being healthy. I'm not going to buy the hype. And look, I believe it. I totally understand where you're coming from. This is a guy that has missed more games than he's played in the NFL. But I'm just telling you, what we saw today was extremely encouraging. Now the hamstring has to stay healthy. I'm not gonna, count on him for the season until he's out there week 1, out there week 6, out there week 12, and able to stay fully healthy. But I gotta say, I see why the Broncos used a 3rd-round pick on him, because he looked really good. And Sean was also very happy with him. In fact, let's hear from Sean talking about Greg Dulcich right now.
How good was it to see Greg Dulcich out there participating?
Really good. All but the black socks, they looked a little awkward, but no, it was good to see. And credit the training staff. You know, when you leave for the summer, no news is good news, and the players that weren't able to practice were the players that we expected that weren't going to be able to practice. So there were no surprises.
Even Sean's like, man, it was great to see him out there. He looked great out there. And then he just goes straight to injury talk about like Greg, just because we know that's a cloud that hangs over Greg's head. But a really encouraging practice in my eyes from Greg. I think that was who really won the day today. And Henry, I know that you think Javonte was the guy that really won the day.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of them. It's just good to know that he cut some weight because something needed to change from last year. As much as we could say, like, yeah, maybe he just needs to get a little bit healthier. Like, maybe it just takes time. Maybe explosiveness comes back. I mean, I guess, what did we find out? Is he like 220 now? 221, I think was what Sean was saying.
Yep.
That's a proactive way to try to get some of that burst back because there was a lot that was going on last year because the burst obviously wasn't there, but also the tackle breaking ability wasn't there either. Yep. And so when you lose both of those, you just got to make a change. So you hope that all of a sudden at least you get like one more step of speed back. And if he does that, then that could be the difference between him having the 3.6 yards per carry he had last year and the 4 at least, like just a real serviceable number. And who knows, maybe just having that little bit more explosiveness can lead to him breaking some more tackles again too. You could be trying to kill 2 birds with that one stone, hopefully.
And Henry, I want to get your opinion on if a rumor that's been floating out there about Javonte can completely be squashed after today or not. But I got to give a shout out to our friends over at Coors Light. It is hot out there. I think we're looking at 99 degrees today. So you want to reach for the beer that is meant to chill. Whether you're talking about the temperature outside and you want to chill from that, whether you're talking about wanting to chill with friends, chill after a long day of work, Coors Light is a beer we reach for over at DNVR and should be the beer that you reach for as well because everything about it is for chilling. The beer is made chilled, it's bottled chilled, it's distributed chilled, and it tells you when it's chilled to the perfect temperature because the mountains on the can, just like we've got on the screen, turn blue. So you know when it's the perfect temperature to drink. So if you're having a party, you're just hanging out after a Wednesday, hump day, 99 degrees in Denver, reach for a Coors Light. And if you want Coors Light delivered straight to your door, go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, where that will get you Instacart to deliver Coors Light to you. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Yep. Now, I mentioned on yesterday's show that Bet365 had a crazy boost. Instead of being minus 240, you could get odds on Paul Skeens to throw at least 7 strikeouts plus 100. So that's like a crazy difference. You make let's just say $24 bet to make things easy. Instead of winning $10, you win $24. You're like more than doubling your profits by taking the boost. He actually had his first ever loss.
Wow.
First ever loss.
But did he get the strikeouts?
Still had 8 strikeouts.
Let's go.
Gave up 2 runs in 8 1/3 innings. First ever loss. Yep. First ever loss. Played almost the entire game.
That is like, I mean, we've seen some Broncos games where they lose 9-6 and it's like the defense. What more could you ask for?
Well, because the thing is, it's because pitcher wins are kind of like the quarterback wins thing. And it's like, oh, quarterback didn't do enough. Like, oh, well, he scored 40 points. So what do you want? So hopefully you got in on that and made some money. They have boosts every day. There's all sorts of different stuff. One bet I might suggest is that, that must be in the middle of a pitch, so I can't take it away. The Rockies are currently winning 3-1 in the bottom of the second inning. The odds aren't quite back up yet, but I'd imagine you could get pretty close to 2-1 odds on the Red Sox to come back and win this game. I don't know who's like pitching or anything like that. I would really suggest taking a long look at that one. Bet365 is awesome though. If you use the code DNVR365 to sign up, you can deposit $10 or more and choose between either a bet and get offer where you place about $5, get $150 in bonus bets, or a first bet safety net offer where you place about up to $1,000, and if that qualifying bet loses, you get a matched refund in bonus bets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The odds are plus 220. Seems like a pretty good deal. Must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, Henry. So there was a rumor going around by some media members during the offseason that Javonte didn't look himself, that he looked like he had a little, his knee buckle in his knee, and that he was on the roster bubble. I want to make it clear, we never once said any of those things. I think it was pretty clear in the offseason program how the team viewed Javonte, and that was completely false. Are you ready to, after day one of training camp, say that Javonte Williams is not on the roster bubble?
He's not right now. He's not right now because he wasn't before. If things go poorly for him, or I guess more so, you might need to see great things happen from some of the other guys. But no, he wasn't on the roster bubble. He still isn't on the roster bubble. He's probably a little bit further away. Again, it's just nice to know that he made a change, something proactive to try to fix things instead of just hoping that things get better. So yeah, he was never in bad shape. He's still the starting running back.
He's the starting running back of the Broncos, and when you're a starter at a position that is so important on a team, and you've been the starter all season long, unless a team comes over and offers a second or a first round pick for Javonte, then we're talking different things right now. But in terms of like roster bubble, in terms of being cut, give me a break. Javonte once was never on there. And then 2, he is so far from being cut and on the roster bubble, it's not even funny. Today, Javonte, he maintains, the team is showing us that he is the number 1 running back by the way they use him. And Javonte looks thinner, like you said, he lost some weight. And Sean had a really cool story, I thought, about how Javonte was able, or how he was able to talk to Javonte to lose that weight. And I don't think we actually have that clip. Do we, Kale? It's another clip on Javonte. We do have that clip.
Notice if you guys get a chance to get up and close, but he's lost weight. He looks trim. I thought he looked sharp today. He looked much different. His weight's down, and proud of him.
What did you notice?
Okay, so he's proud of him. And then in another question, he talked about the story, and he said, this offseason I sat down with Javonte, and I kind of had a picture of some running backs on my screen. I said, I want you to be that player. And you know who he was pointing to?
Himself.
Javonte from a couple of years ago. Exactly.
Yeah.
He said, I want that Javonte Williams back, meaning I want you to be in your college weight. And that's what Sean typically likes guys to stay in throughout their entire career, is what they played in college. And of course, how did that work out for Javonte his first year in the NFL?
Worked well.
He led the NFL in broken tackles. He was an absolute beast. That's the Javonte Williams the Broncos want. So that was Sean's message to Javonte Williams. And Javonte, credit to him, he did it. This offseason, specifically this summer break, he did lose some weight, and he looks ready to go. I can tell that he's even faster than he was, and you hear it from Sean. I mean, is there any question that that's a guy that's on the roster bubble? No, that's a guy that is your starting running back this year, and I think it's the competition now at this running back is, okay, we know Javonte is number 1. I'm pretty clear Jaleel's number 2. Especially because they're different types of players. So I think we're going to see Javonte on the field the most, then Jaleel on the field. And then it's like, okay, now who's going to grab that 3rd spot, grab that 4th spot, and who's going to make the team? I think that is completely wide open. Obviously, Estime is going to make the team, but maybe he's the 4th running back instead of the 3rd. And so I think that's where the competition is now. I think it's very clear it's Javonte and Jaleel 1 and 2.
Javonte's definitely number 1. I think it's too early to say Jaleel's number 2. It wasn't his fault that things didn't really go his way today. The backup offensive line really wasn't good. They struggled. I do think that the other thing about Javonte's speed, maybe what stood out a little bit more, is that Audric Estime looked just a little bit slow.
Good to see him out there.
Definitely good to see him out there. And again, like, he looked slow on a long run. He had there was a nice kick out block. It was the best play of the day for the backup offensive line, 2nd or 3rd string, whatever it was. Kicks out the tackle, and so he has this big running lane. Just felt like they could have got going a little bit more.
That's fair, but let me ask you, Henry, is that surprising?
A little. I mean, you hope again, like you know where his strengths are.
Yeah.
But again, like I kind of was. I've said before, like I wouldn't be surprised if he's your starting running back at the end of the season. He looked a little bit more one-dimensional than I thought that he was, though. Again, and it's one play, and it was a play that went for a big game.
Sure. And obviously things can change, and that's why we're here to update you after every single training camp practice. But if you drafted Audric Estime in the 5th round with speed or fast in any of the top priorities of what you want from his game, then that's shame on you. That's not who Audric Estime is. And I know he really improved his 40 time when he ran at his pro day instead of the combine, got it down from like a 4.85 to a 4.71, I think, which is really big improvement. But he's not a burner. Like in fact, when the Broncos, not only is he not a burner, just right now, he should be the slowest running back on the Broncos team. Like there's no one that I think should be slower than him. So to me, I understand that you want more from him, but I think it's kind of unrealistic to ask. Like that's the guy you drafted.
But you're not asking him. I don't think it is. You're not asking him to be a burner. You're just asking for him to not be notably slow. Like eye catching kind of slow. Because I think Samaje had moments last year where you say like, I thought it would be nice if he had a little bit more. I mean, that's why you aren't handing the ball off and running any wide zones to him. And I think, again, like that's a run where you go toward the boundary, hit that B gap out there, and I just want to see a little bit more gas. And I thought once he turned upfield, there was a little bit more there, but if you're really a one-dimensional bruising back, like that's not a guy who gets drafted, you know? Like you need to at least have the upside of having enough speed, but those...
Well, he was a one-dimensional bruising back. That is why he got drafted.
But he ran for like 1,000 yards. Like you were able to get to outside.
One-dimensional bruising back because he's so bruising
I disagree.
that he like runs over people more than Javonte Williams does in college.
But he wasn't like Mike Allstott out there. Like he did have like a second gear. Like he did break some long runs.
I'm curious.
Like he just doesn't look like a guy who you could kind of run to the boundaries, which he was in college. You could run to the boundaries.
Yeah, that's not his game though.
No,
and
but
that's
you need
at college. So you
well-roundedness.
have to know when you're bringing him to the NFL that's going to be limited even more there. So if that's the case, Henry, and what you're saying, then I say shame on the Broncos. They knew exactly what they were getting, and I disagree. I don't say this in a bad way at all to Audric. I still think he's going to have a role on this team, and especially with Javonte. If you want to keep him fresh throughout the entirety of a game, when you need those 1 or 2 hard yards, that's when you bring Audric in for that. It's just as a rookie season. And right now, because of how he looks, and maybe he does need to lose a little bit of weight and in order to be faster, and that's why maybe my expectations on day 1 of camp are a little bit down for Audric going into this season, because Javonte, honestly, it's because of Javonte, because of just he looks like that type of dude.
Yeah, maybe it was just one play, and sometimes you're like looking at it from a weird angle, but just seeing that, it left me a little disappointed. Like he doesn't. Again, it's just the first day. Hopefully there's some more flashes going forward.
Okay, so Henry, let's get into other big takeaways here. I have one other just massive takeaway from this practice. We've talked a lot about the offensive side of the ball, and kind of underwhelming a little bit, but not surprising. Again, the defense is supposed to be better at the beginning of camp. And a massive reason why the defense was better than the offense today was Zach Allen. He was a monster. He was blowing up plays left and right. In fact, the very first play of team period, Stidham under center, and he goes back to pass, I believe, right?
Second play. Okay,
first pass play of the day then. Stidham goes back to pass, and... wait, let me just find it to make sure. Yep, you're right. It was the second play. Stidham goes back to pass, and Zach Allen is there. It is a likely sack. He would have brought him down, and instead Stidham just dumps it off to Samaje in the backfield. But he blew up multiple pass plays. He blew up multiple run plays, including one that you were talking about with Jaleel had just no chances because Zach Allen was in the backfield. He was a monster.
Yeah, no, he had the back-to-back good ones. I wasn't sure that one was a sack. I thought Quinn had done enough to get him around Like, because you kind of work those
Quinch
circles.
your guy though. We were talking to another
I've-
media member, Zach By, who said, "Yeah, that was a sack."
I disagree. I think with the roll, I don't think Zach can turn that corner as fast as he'd need to actually get to Sim. But still, like, got into the backfield. The next one I liked even more. I will say though, I thought the starting offensive line generally looked pretty good. Because again, like when that rollouts this way, you could kind of justify running him around the outside. And then you look at like the first play that they had like the zone toss to the right side where I didn't see who was making the blocks, but you could probably imagine who'd be out there. There's just this massive crease for a big gain for Javonte. And that play also stood out. So
Wait, so you're saying the starting offensive line looked good?
I would say so let's see, they had
We had 4 plays.
Four plays.
That we're talking about.
I would say that
the
first
very
play was
one,
awesome.
Let's just go through them. Javonte,
Yep.
it was a run. That was awesome.
That
they
was
opened up
really
a hole, and
good.
that's where you really saw Javonte.
Yep.
It wasn't a cut, but when he went upfield, it was burst.
Yep. Then the next play you have, again, it's play action, and you get Zach around the outside. Like, it's one where, again, if you think it's a sack, then we disagree here. But to me, like, you run him around the outside on the back side of the play action, like you're good to make that pass. And then he did it again. No. The next play was also the play action to Dulcich. That was one of Dulcich's pair of catches.
Yep.
Again, little dump off. And the last one, the defense got him. That's where Jonas, I think, probably made the tackle, but Zach Allen was also in the backfield.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, we just went through it. I do think that was a sack, or at least like very heavy pressure, which is not good from an offense. So in 4 plays, I have 2 pluses, 2 minuses.
Yeah.
That's a massive win for the defense.
Okay.
If you're splitting half of the plays with wins, like,
but again,
that's why it's not fair to be an offensive lineman. You have 1 bad play in a game and 59 good plays. That's a bad game for you. On the defensive side, it's not fair because from an offensive perspective, because if you have 59 okay plays, nothing special, and 1 big play that's a sack fumble, well, you just had the best day of anyone on your team right there. You can't be going 50-50 on the offense. That's why I'm giving this to the defensive line big time.
But at the same time, again, I had them not giving up a sack. I had them getting it done pass protection, and I have 2 carries. One goes probably for like a loss of 2. The other goes for 15 or 20. Like, you wind up with 7.5 yards per carry on 2 runs. Like, that's... When you look at the numbers, I think it worked out pretty well.
Man, it was Sack Allen out there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he looked really good though. He looked really good
because he got the sack.
Yes, no, he looked really good.
Okay, what else did you see here, Henry?
Well, I mentioned Jonas made that play, but in the next period, you had Cody Barton make a play as well. Like, same thing. Like, I can't remember what exactly kind of run it was, but just a stuff, either a yard in the backfield or right at the line of scrimmage. So you see those two kind of go back and forth. And then earlier on, we mentioned it, but Jonas had that breakup, great coverage, zone coverage on the seam route to Troutman. And so, again, me and Todd, I think it was me and Todd who talked about when you're gone. But what you want to see is that these guys are going back and forth making plays and not just like going back and forth making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like right now, again, it's one day. They were out there for 4 snaps of team drills each. So it's not like it's this huge sample size. But that almost makes it more impressive that you have notable plays from both of them. And as of right now, you'd say they both look like starting linebackers. Again, it's small sample size, but it's what you wanted in the first day.
And I just love Jonas absolutely smothering coverage on Troutman, 15 yards downfield. Again, ball went through his hands, but Jonas could not have been in better position there. And that's really good because what has the Broncos defense missed for a while? The ability to cover a tight end, whether it's like they never really know, should they put Justin Simmons on a tight end? Should they put a linebacker on a tight end? And it's been many years since they've had the ability there. So Jonas just showing that potential, even though it was Troutman, it was still encouraging for me.
Definitely. The other real note that I had, big picture wise, was just it was just, should we be concerned by the checkdowns? And to me, like again, like when you're running with heavy personnel for your 4 plays, like that's what you're going to get. Like you're not looking for deep balls.
To be fair though, I think most of the offseason it was the offense was built on checkdowns as well. So I don't think that's just a note from today.
No, I mean it's Sean Payton's entire history is. You have really good skill position players, and you get a guy who can give them the ball. And that guy being Drew Brees means that you're going to win a lot of games because he can give them the ball every time. So, yeah, that was just one little note where, Dulcich had his 2 catches, one where he's open on the sideline, decent gain. The other, you leak him out and he's off and running. Sure, if you want to get Dulcich the ball there with some space to run, that's great. You have the little curl to Nate Adkins where you pick up 2-3 yards. What are we doing here? You have the one real miss from Jarrett Stidham today. He threw a ball behind Philip Dorsett, similar to Tim Patrick ball, where you spin around and you hope the receiver makes a play, but you certainly can't expect him to. And this one, there's like 3 guys bearing down on me. You're like, well, what is this? Best case scenario, he catches it, gets blasted by 3 guys, and you get 3 yards. Like so your ceiling on that play is already so low. There's just a difference between getting the ball to a guy who can take it and run and getting a ball to the guy who's going to catch it and pick up 2-3 yards. And we leaned a little bit too close to getting it to the guy who gets 2-3 yards today.
That's why Greg Dulcich is going to be so big for this Broncos offense if he's able to stay healthy, is because he's a guy, and Marvin Mims, that catches a pass and then can make a play and do something. Sean Payton was asked, speaking of the wide receivers and playmakers, Sean Payton was asked, why is one specific coach just screaming at Troy Franklin every single play? We can't talk about like what's being said in practice. The Broncos don't let us, but because the question was asked, we can talk about it. Troy was, and you know what? Some people view that as a positive. It means that the coaches have not given up on Troy Franklin, but that's something to kind of keep our eye on, because is this something that's going to happen every practice for 20 straight practices? And the way Sean put it was, oh no, that coach is an equal opportunity yeller, essentially. He's going to get under everyone's skin. But that was just an interesting thing there. But speaking of the playmakers, the Broncos need these guys, because Henry, I think regardless of who the quarterback is this year, they are going to, if they want playmakers, or if they want big-time plays, it's going to come from their playmakers making those plays. It's not going to be from consistent 50-yard passes from Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson. It's going to be from these playmakers catching a 5-yard slant and taking it to the house, turning a comeback from 10 yards, shaking the cornerback, and then going another 30 yards. That's going to be huge for this offense, because I think this offense this year is set up to be run, short pass, run, short pass, run, short pass, and then maybe a deep ball here and there. But I think for the most part, this is going to be a very methodical offense, where we're seeing 15-play drives, 10-play drives, 12-play drives. And that's why, from a quarterback, decision-making is so important, is because there's going to be so many plays in a game. And if you want to go down the field, it's not going to be happening on 2-play drives for the most part. It's going to be happening on 10 and 15-play drives, and you just cannot be having bad decisions, or else there's going to be just way too many turnovers.
And that's the part of this where, in a lot of ways, Bo Nix is a good fit for this offense, but there are some ways where he's really not. And the fact that he's hardly played from under center, it's just a little bit strange. Just because again, they're working on heavy personnel today, but I agree. Like, you have this offensive line, you want to let him work. And so when you're putting him under center over and over and over again, which is the way to best utilize that offensive line, you're asking him to do something new. And maybe he picks it up and it all works out great, but the footwork's different. The way you see the field's a little bit different. You're not just sitting back there taking everything in. You're hunched over. There's just some of those little quirks. On top of that, all the reads he's used to making in a spread offense at Oregon, that's where you get receivers way out there. Your tight end is probably split out. Well, if outside of Bo Nix, this team is very much set up to be playing with multiple tight ends. And you hand the ball off and run wide zones or whatever it may be, and then run play action off of that. And I'm pretty sure Bo had some good play action numbers, but again, play action from the shotgun is a little bit different than play action from the other center and the rollout. And so in a lot of ways, Bo Nix fits what Sean Payton does really well. But in a few of these, just meshing with where the Broncos' strengths are, somebody needs to do something that they're not comfortable with. And it's probably going to be Bo fitting in and learning how to play under center. But like, I believe he had a historically low rate of under center snaps. And so it's just worth monitoring going forward.
Very fair. And speaking of Sean Payton, just like his offense, Zuriel in the Toyota chat says, do people forget how Breeze and Michael Thomas made their money together? And Todd says, tell me, Zuriel. Well, it's the short game. It's a lot of dink and dunk. You think of Michael Thomas and you're like, oh my gosh, 6'3", 215-pound receiver, must just be a great deep ball guy. Yeah, he could do the deep ball, but that is not where he made his money. He made his money with the short passes, and that's why it was like, oh, maybe Courtland Sutton, when the Broncos hired Sean Payton, maybe Courtland Sutton's going to be more of a short guy and short yardage guy than we thought, because he has a similar frame as Michael Thomas, and Sean Payton and Drew Brees had no issue using a big Michael Thomas for a bunch of short stuff. Michael Thomas still has the record for most catches in a season at like 157 in a season. That's insane. He wasn't doing that from catching deep balls left and right. He was doing it by catching 2-yard passes, 5-yard passes, 7-yard passes. Would he have a couple of deep balls in a season? Of course he would, but that's not where he made his money.
Yep, definitely. Can I hit some of these real quick?
Yep, let's do it.
Saw some of Jaquan McMillan on the boundary today, lined up against Devon Vele. There was just a comeback route. Devon got him on the comeback. Just kind of interesting as you kind of see whether maybe he could stick out there.
Devon's making this team. Vele.
Why couldn't you get him to the practice squad? That's my only question. He's a 26-year-old rookie. He was in the 7th round. Every team has so many receivers. I just think that you could get him to the practice squad.
That's not how Sean thinks. In fact,
I think it is. Lil Jordan played every game but went to the practice squad.
It's not. In fact, we even heard it today from Sean, which is a nice transition because Sean, he mentioned it all last year. He mentioned it this offseason, then he mentioned it today. Sean is petrified, maybe more than any other coach, because I've never heard another coach talk about it this much. Sean is petrified of having a player in the building, letting them go, and then them going and succeeding to another team. Having that mentality of, oh, he'll just slide through to the practice squad, is that exact thing Sean Payton is deathly afraid of. If you are
You did it with Lil Jordan.
If you are... Little Jordan was a guy that had been on the market.
He was younger than Devon is.
I think it's different because what I'm saying though is Troy Franklin a 4th round pick, Devon Vele a 7th round pick. It obviously makes sense to keep the 4th round pick, and I think they're both going to make the team. But Sean's not afraid if Vele is clearly the better one to prioritize him more than that. And I don't think I think they're both going to make the team here. But
see, the thing is, Troy doesn't make the practice squad.
You're right, but I don't think Sean is willing to take that gamble because he is so afraid of that. And he actually brought up our very own Todd Davis. Coach Davis. First thing, can we pull up a picture of Coach Davis, our co-worker on the sideline today, rocking the Broncos visor and the Broncos gear. He was on the field for the entirety of practice. It was awesome to see Todd out there.
Yep. It's Ray Jackson, too.
It is, yeah. So Todd, a defensive kind of intern working around the field. And Sean, because Todd is part of the team now, but also to talk about this point and just so afraid of losing guys and having them succeed somewhere else, Sean brought up Todd today. Let's hear that clip.
Look, the most important thing we do here in the next month is, and I say this respectfully to everyone, is find the right 53 and not let, a good player out of the building. Try not to. One of our interns out here, Todd Davis, that you guys got to see play here for a long time. We had him kind of hidden in a room, trying to hang on to him. He gets claimed, he's got to come, and I regret that. We don't want guys like that getting out of the building, and then he ends up, playing well and for another team. So we were deep there, maybe, I'm not sure, but so that's the most important thing, finding the right 53.
And what was our friend Todd? He was undrafted.
Yep.
And Sean saying, man, I messed up there.
Yep.
I should have kept him. And he continues to talk about that. So I don't think Sean cares. And Sean's also said, I don't care how you got here. If you're a better player, you're going to play. And I got to say, Devon Vele has been one of the top 6 receivers on the Broncos today and in this offseason. So I'm not going to hold the 7th round pick against him.
Well, Jordan was better, so he played. He just did it from the practice squad.
Vele wasn't on the team last year.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, he was good enough to play. You could play, but just be on the practice squad.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, Henry,
we'll see. It just depends on
We've got 2 minutes
preseason.
left.
Yeah.
Take us through your final notes.
Let's see, where were we? We were that Cody Barton stuff. You had Jonah Ellis in the backfield as well. Again, didn't see a lot of him, but there was a nice little play from him. That comeback where Bo and Josh Reynolds just weren't seeing things the same way. That was Chris Abrams-Drain in good coverage. Didn't talk about him at all during the spring, but that was the first kind of notable play he made, putting them in kind of a tight situation. You had, again, all these backup rushers were beating up on the backup offensive lines. Elijah Garcia, Thomas Incoom, Andre Smith, the veteran linebacker who signed, who maybe could be competing with like a Justin Sternad for a special teams role, depth linebacker role. You had Drellin Chamey would have had a sack on Zach Wilson. And so, again, like more than ever, again, as Sean says, you have a 69-man roster because of these rule changes, not a 53. So you're going to be seeing these guys play on game days. And so they're just kind of figuring out who's actually worthy of snaps. I think those are the big ones.
Final note from me, Courtland Sutton was at practice. He was practicing, so it does not appear a hold-in is going to happen with Courtland. Obviously, we talked about it yesterday. Sean completely shut that down yesterday, but it was good to see number 14 out there practicing. They've got another practice tomorrow. Not open to fans, but open to media. Henry and I are going to be there. So is Todd. He's just going to be on the sideline. So we'll break it down tomorrow right around the same time, maybe 1:15 Denver time. Practice is a little bit longer tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow on the DNVR Broncos podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.